everybody, Julie Murphy here, and we are going to do a recording, and Shannon has agreed to come on because for better or for worse, she sent me an email saying, hey, how do I find my giggle? And so I know I say that all the time. It's about choosing the option that makes you giggle. And so Shannon has agreed to come here live for me to work through with her of how to find her giggle, and so that we can help more people do that. So thank you, Shannon, so much for coming out.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So I guess, do you mind you told me you were a teacher, and so tell me, are you in transition? Are you like, what's going on in your world that you're trying to find your giggle?
Yeah. So really ever since COVID, I've just been feeling very, very drained by teaching, like very drained. And there are things that I love about my job, totally. Yep. But there's a lot that's really draining me. And I'm starting to feel like it's affecting all parts of my life, as a mom, as a wife, everything. And so, I follow you and I just love everything that you say. And I'm just really intrigued by this whole thing of finding my giggle. I do not feel like I'm giggling when it comes to teaching anymore. And it makes me sad, so I'd love to do something that helps me to find my giggle.
Well, and I will say, so many of us go into something and at one time it did make us giggle, but then we're kind of like stuck in the system, right? We're stuck in the thought of the pension plan that I'm putting in place, or the thought of the tenure being a teacher, or the thought of like, I don't know if I want to start something new. Because how long have you been a teacher for?
24 years.
24 years, right. And here's the thing. Every single one of us, our soul came here to follow our soul's path and what it is that we're supposed to learn and evolve. So let's just say that that's this road, okay? And then you've made choices along the way that has either created you to be really far off where your soul's supposed to go, or just a little bit. And that difference between those two places is actually that midlife crisis that everybody talks about. So if you're really far away from where your soul's path, it's not that you weren't getting the knock at the door going, hello, shift. Hello, it's time to shift. What happens is that first it's like a little knock on the door. Then it's like someone's banging on the door. Then it's like a 2x4 that smacks you across the forehead. It gets more and more intense. The crisis that you on a soul level are calling in gets more and more significant until you finally pay attention and take the leap of faith and trust that you need to go. So you wanting to find your giggle, it's before a crisis. Like, have you noticed any of these knocks on the door or anything like that are kind of going like, hello? Has there been anything that you've kind of seen signs along the way?
A little bit. Like this past year, especially, I had a really tough schedule. I'm a high school teacher. I had a really tough schedule. Students that are have a lot of needs. And even my teachers surround me were like, I can't believe you got this schedule. I mean, like, you've been teaching for 24 years. Like, this is a tough schedule for anyone, much less, you're kind of a veteran. Like, usually by now you sort of carved your, your path and yeah. And so for sure and there were lots of nights where, I remember telling my husband, like, I can't do this. Like, I'm so stressed out. And, he's my husband being the loving, like, caring. He's like, you're going to retire in like 10 years. Like, what are you talking about?
Right. Well, that's the thing I was talking about. Like, that's the thing I'm talking about in terms of like, we're in this mode. It's like, you only got 10 years. Like, what are you doing? And you're upsetting the apple cart. But here's the thing. If we don't shift when we get these signs, we then are choosing, because we have to understand that we're choosing this. You're choosing for the cells of your body to create dis-ease within your physical body to where in 10 years, you're going to have the full manifestation of some kind of sickness because you're not in alignment with your soul's path. I have seen this so many times as a financial planner, but yet our brains, our highly educated brains, are telling us but you only got 10 more years. You're right. And it's like, okay, I've done it 24 years. Do I have another 20? But the closer you get to that 10 more years, the more challenges. I just literally had a call with a client of mine this morning who's a teacher, and she's got the 10 years. She knows the system, but she's not part of the principal's favorite club because she, doesn't get the little extra perks, and she then isolated herself, and she goes, you know what? So I went back to the classroom and got out of all the dailiness so she could control her own world. And I go, but is that what you aspire to be as a teacher? Is that what you've aspired to want to do? And she's like, well, I insulated myself. I go, okay, but it's not making you giggle. Like being in the classroom, like she wants a person who runs it, who like she's got more, she wants to expand more of her talents into more of the administration role. Like that's what excites her today. Right. So is your giggle more about like, do you think it's staying in the place that you're at? Do you still want to teach, or is it just the environment you're in?
It might be both. It might be moving out of both. Like when I think about like what really still lights me up about being with my students and being at where I am, I do love interacting with the students. I do love my colleagues, but like the situation, I feel very constricted by it. I feel very.
Talk to me more about the situation.
Just, there are certain things that we have to do and ways that we have to do it. And there are SAT scores we have to think about. And there are, I feel like a lot of teachers in general are like very stressed out people and very like type A, and it's got to be this way. And like all of that just makes me like, I want to break away. That's how I feel.
Right. So it's like, it's like achievement based. Like you have to cross all these lines or else there's consequence. Right.
Yes.
And I would say that is, so we all have our entire world, and each of us individually have divine masculine energy and divine feminine energy. So it's the energy of the mind and the ego is the masculine, and the energy of the heart is the divine feminine. And what most of us have not done when we choose a career, the work that we're doing in the world, is that, again, we're doing it from our highly educated brains, but we're not integrating it with our hearts, and we're also not integrating it with our wallets. So it's about how do you get that heart and mind and wallet stuff all aligned? Because we typically, like your husband said, we're not leaving this job because, well, you only got 10 more years, because the wallet thing is going, but you only have 10 more years. Like my client this morning, she said to me, she goes, but I'm already tenured and I only need to put in, like X amount of more years before my pension kicks in. And like, this is like, okay, so the wallet thing might work out if I stay. The mind thing works out, but then her heart's left on the sidelines. And when that happens, we create disease in our bodies because we only work things out or we act it out, and we do it through our money, through our health, or our relationships. Okay. So if you still love to teach. So it's the teaching part that really lights you up still, the students themselves.
I think so. Yeah. And I teach science and I love science. I that part is I still feel very connected to that. I don't know that it makes me giggle. I don't know that like, I don't know.
Even saying that, it doesn't make you giggle. Because it would be a yes. It's so funny. You're giving all the examples of clients that I had today. I had another client today. She's like, well, I don't know. She was trying to reason out because we've been taught to reason it out. Right. And I said, but it's not a yes. It's not, right. Yes, it makes me giggle. So tell me about, do you have kids?
I have one son. Yes.
And how old?
He's 7.
7. So you're still raising them, and that's got to weigh on your mind financially, right? Because it's like, okay, we still got to get him up and out, right?
Yeah.
Get him to college and all that other good stuff. And do you work at a private or a public school?
Public.
Public. Right. So that's all about checking the boxes so you can get the public tax dollars, right?
Yes.
That's why you got to hit all those things, right? And And have you ever thought of going like to a private or a Montessori or like a Waldorf or anything like that?
I have, but when I think about that, I still feel the constricting. That's why I haven't made any moves like that. It feels like I feel like it's going to be something that's my own. That's how I feel.
It's gonna be your own.
Mhm.
Okay. What about like so what have you ever been drawn to that makes you giggle?
I don't know,
Doesn't
like,
have to be career.
yeah, like
What just makes you giggle?
so I love hanging out with my son and my nephews. We hang out like almost every single day. We have a cat. I love my cat. um, like besides that, like I don't know, like maybe I like fashion. I'm very interested in science stuff. I like when we go to see animal kind of stuff. I like that. But as far as like giggling, I don't really know. That's where I'm stuck.
Okay, first of all, our words are super powerful, right? So you saying that I'm stuck, that creates the stuck. So we live
Mm.
in a holographic universe. What we think, what we speak, and what we feel actually creates our world. So, like I always tell my kids, and literally this weekend they said to me, they're like, "We know, Mom, don't try, just do." Because I'm always like, "Don't try to do something, just do it." Like, and I always say, "Don't hope, trust, have faith that it's all going to work out. Just trust when you jump off the ledge, it's going to work." Because it's a difference between being like a victim to whatever circumstance versus coming from a place of empowerment. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Right.
it does.
So trust the fact that it's not a yes, right? Like you're like, yeah, that it's not a yes to be in any other kind of schooling system, right?
It's not. Yeah.
But you kind of have a little lightness. And even the words as they came out of your mouth when you said, it's like being on my own. So what that tells me, and it's funny, this goes completely in alignment. I just finished the last taping for I'm doing a 6-week online course. And I literally, it's about building your life on your own terms. So that's like, so you're seeking like some kind of sense of freedom that you don't have today.
100%.
Right. And so, what kind of things make you feel free?
Um, what kind of things do make me feel free? Being outside, being in nature. Um, yeah, I would say probably like being like if we're like we went to an animal farm, like I really liked that. Um, I
Needed time to work at an animal farm?
say that again?
Have you ever donated time or something like that to work at an animal farm?
No, I haven't. Mm-mm.
So this is where we start to build the muscle in other directions. Let me give
Mm-hmm.
you an example outside of yourself. Another client I was working with last week, she was talking about the fact that I just can never sit down and I can never find the space. But yet earlier in the conversation, she had said to me, she goes, "Gosh, I just came home and I just absolutely loved going out on my patio." And I said, "So you like to go on your patio and that's where you find space." I go, "Do you have a space to meditate on your patio?" And she goes, "What a great idea." Because
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't necessarily sit and meditate. She doesn't have a space. But she loves the patio and she naturally already went there. So this is about us finding our natural paths. So like you had said, outside nature and animal farm. That's where that brought me to the fact of going, there are scientific things that happen in animal farms. Like I started to think about how to integrate who Shannon is and who she's become to create this bridge to this new way of living life on her terms and being able to do what you love and financially still participate with your family, right? To make everything work, to make the whole engine work. And
Yes.
so what happens when we take that next step, like my client creating a meditation space on her patio, like when we do something like that, or you donating time at an animal farm, it now cracks open going, oh, I like that. I want more of that. There's the giggle. You're going, oh, this is what my heart feels like when it's being fed, as opposed to the 24 years that I've spent, that becomes more and more of a jail cell over time. It may have been your giggle at one time, but it's now it's hitting the grindstone, like checking a box for retire. That's why so many people, when they retire, there's such a high percentage of people that get sick and die within 5 years of retirement.
Oh,
Because they've forgotten
so sad.
their soul for so long that it's like a train going, 90 miles an hour right into a brick wall. And your whole body and your whole system is like, because they did the responsible thing, the logical thing. They've done it, except they forgot they negotiated their hearts away somewhere along the way. And I noticed this particularly men actually do this because they're such unbelievably great providers for their families, but they do it at the cost of themselves. So I started to learn this because 50% of my male clients between 55 and 65 develop cancer around their hip area. And then I started to go, why did these guys lose this part of themselves? And the work that I did with Deepak Chopra, he says that a cancer cell develops because that cell has lost its sense of purpose. And what I've come to learn years later, it's just about the fact that you forget yourselves. Women, it shows up as breast cancer because they nurture everybody else in the world and they don't nurture themselves. And breast cancer on an emotional level is all about how are you nurturing yourself?
Yeah.
Right. So, so the giggle piece, it's about starting to find the things, like you also said, you love hang out with your son and your nephews. Something that popped into my mind when you said that was, well, if you want to do something on your own and you love hanging with your son and nephews, well, what about it could be that next summer, maybe you work this school year as you're trying to figure this out, but you plan it could be on Christmas break, some kind of camp at your place, people come and you create something on your own so that parents can drop their kids off to you. And maybe you do 5 or 10 of them. What does something like that feel to you?
I've thought about that. So it's funny you say that. It would have to be something that I really something that I really feel excited about because just having a bunch of 7 to 9-year-olds or whatever sounds heavy. But if it was something
about? What are you really excited about?
I mean, the only thing I can think of is science stuff, which I'm not, again, it's not such a yes. It's a yeah, maybe. More animal stuff sounds more exciting.
Animal more than science?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they can kind of go together, but yeah, probably. I mean, I have a cat. I don't have a farm of animals here, but
what do you think of a farm of animals, though?
I think that could be interesting. Definitely.
Does your body feel light when you think about that, or does it get a heaviness about it?
More light, I would say. Yeah.
See, this is how you find your giggle. So your body is smarter than your mind. So it's about how does your body feel when you think about, oh, what if I wound up with a whole bunch more animals and taught science? And if your body, as you start thinking and brainstorming, goes, ooh, and you sink into it, there's something there. But if you start to contract and your shoulders go and you start getting anxiety and well, what do I do about this? What do I do? Then that's not the direction. This is how you start to find more of the giggle.
Yeah. So what if I start if I'm oh, okay, I could try something, but then I'm oh, but my husband would hate that. And where would I do that? And
so this is where we negotiate ourselves away because of what other people, I'm going to give you an example. Yesterday, I was supposed to have dinner with a couple people, and I knew I was supposed to just spend the time with my daughters. And I didn't know why. And I knew these other people were not going to be happy with me at all. Kind of like your husband having a bunch of animals, right?
Yeah.
And so, but I just knew, I'm thank you for understanding, but I needed to spend tonight with my girls. And I didn't know why, I didn't know how, but I just knew that was the lightest, even though I knew I was going to piss somebody off on this side. I was and I knew it. And that all happened. And that person reacted I'm important too, blah, 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 blah. And I was I love you. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And I'm very sorry, but I know I just need to do this. So I was following my guidance instead of somebody else's reaction, right? On the way home, my 12-year-old just started crying and she goes, Mom, I'm so happy. I don't even know. I'm just so happy. She just needed mom time. And on some level of me knew it, even though I disappointed other people, but I knew what my child needed. And I followed that guidance above expectations and responsibility. And it's not, I'm not a mean person, but other people will emotionally project when you don't show up the way that they want you to show up for them.
Right.
And when we take on somebody else's projection, then we're negotiating ourselves away. So for you to evolve, for your husband to evolve, and for your son to evolve, all into the best versions of yourself, you have to be exactly who you are and follow your own guidance system, because it leads everything else around you to do the same. And then everybody finds their giggle. And I said to my Bridget, I said, sweetheart, I go, this is the kind of happy you have to keep alive your entire life, honey. Because this fed your soul, and now you know what it feels like to pay attention to what Bridget's needs were. And we did it. And it felt good. To me, to you, for you, you needed it so much, like Eric brought you to tears. Your sister, well, she's just being the goof that she normally is, but we had girl time. Right? So this is where it was finding the giggle. Like, she was geeking out that the three of us, without her brothers, without her dad, without mom's boyfriend, like, she was so happy. And it had nothing to do with anybody else. It had everything to do with the fact that it's just what she needed. Right?
Yeah.
So your husband will have a reaction and just be like, I know it may sound wacko. I know it may, I just need you to trust me on this one. I'm not really sure exactly where it leads, but I need you to trust me. Right?
Okay.
And that sometimes comes with awkward conversations that you wouldn't necessarily always have. But again, understanding that when we negotiate away our giggle or something that feels intuitively right before we put it through the filter of everybody else's reactions, you still have to show them how to follow their lead. Right? Because you're also then teaching them to follow their gut instincts.
Okay.
And that's where you then step into being the female leader of the household. I think that's one of the biggest problems in the world today. Women can complain all they want about men and the system and whatever, that we're not paid enough. But until women decide to step into their leadership role, you can't really blame anybody else. Because we have to own our greatness for what we're great at. And that's following our intuition. That's one of the biggest things, that women have a gut. We do it with our children, but we don't apply it to everywhere else in our world. And we need to, because that's us really, truly being in our power. And it's what's going to make you giggle the most. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So you're not going to know exactly what it is. All you're going to know is, this is the next thing that's going to make me giggle more. And the more you then choose the next thing that makes you giggle more, you got to go, well, I kind of want more of that. That makes me feel really good. And you keep stepping into it. So like you said, well, I'm a little bit more excited about the animal stuff than I am the science stuff. Okay, that's information. So more of you opens up to your authenticity if you go step into doing something with animals. That's why I was saying, like, donate time at an animal farm. Like, you don't know, maybe there's a job opening that opens up that pays you exactly what you make as a teacher. You have no idea.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Like, you have no idea. But what you have to do is throw away everything in that big, beautiful, educated mind of yours of what it is, because we evaluate it, right? Because you have no idea, by you stepping there, you just changed the trajectory of everything, of what else is going to open up next.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I like that. Yeah.
But so so you have a couple pieces of information. I would also encourage you or anyone else who's watching this, write down. Because we're going to get off this and you're going to be like, now, what did she say? So do you have a pen and piece of paper handy?
I do.
Okay. These are the things that I want you to know, that you had the instincts already that it's on your own. You're not sure what that looks like. You're not sure how that's formed, but you've already been given some kind of intuitive guidance that, okay, so it's on your own. So that's number one. Number two is, it's more about like an animal farm than other science stuff. And again, not really exactly sure what that means. It's still a little gray, but that makes you giggle more, right? Just like my daughter with just going to dinner with the couple, the two of us and her sister, right? And you said other things that give you more freedom feeling was that it's outside and it's in nature. Well, animal farms are that. What else gives you freedom? The feeling of freedom.
Like being able to like decide my own schedule, which that kind of goes along with like being on my own.
So why is that important to you? I want to understand the why.
I despise when like my son is sick and I'm like, okay, today's a bad day. Like I've got tests coming up. I have to make sub plans. I'm going to have 100 parents calling me. Like and I have to leave him with my husband or with my, somebody.
So you want it to be family friendly, whatever this is.
Yes.
And again, because we got to remember, we do walk across the bridge. So the first thing that you get may not have all the components, but it's going to have more of the components than you have today. Right. So like, it could be something like, maybe it's not on your own until you learn some more stuff about how to do a family farm and your family and science, right? Like there may be more components to it that you don't know. So there may be something that's a bridge. Is there anywhere that you ever take the kids at school on a field trip that just excites you to take the kids to?
Well, I'm always so shocked, like whenever I take them to the zoo, like how excited they are by it. Like I don't love the zoo, but I'm always very excited by that. I'm like warms my heart to see that.
That's more about the kids than it's about you. Is there anywhere that you like? And that is a great example of how we do it. We put it through other people's filters as opposed to our own filter of what excites you, right? It's very common that you've right now gotten your happiness from things outside of yourself. So then when something of that thing doesn't work out, then you're like, where's my happiness? As opposed to finding that inner happiness and inner peace within yourself. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does make sense. Yeah, for sure. I do that.
We all do that. Like we have been trained to do that. That's what all the marketing for everything is about. It's about, if you do this, then you're going to feel like this, as opposed to like, if I do none of that, I'm still should feel like that.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yes,
it's a very
absolutely.
external gratification environment that we live in the Western world.
Yeah.
And for better or for worse, the Western world has taught the rest of the world how to do. Right?
Yeah.
And this is about finding that inner happiness, finding that inner peace, finding that inner gratification for everything without having anyone or anything show up or do anything. Because then when you have that inner peace, because you will never get that inner peace and that inner happiness unless you're actually 100% authentically being you in the world. And right now, you're not. Because you haven't, I will say, loved yourself enough to not care about, on some level, what other people's reactions are to me shifting this, and the fear and of maybe making a mistake. I think oftentimes
probably
the fear of like, I don't want to make a mistake because I put in these 24 years and what do I do?
Yeah.
Like, you can always go back. But here's the thing. I've always noticed people don't ever go back because they crack themselves open a little bit more. Right? They were just on the bridge to get to that next place. So
Interesting.
in your world, there's something with Animal Farm, but it was funny how you didn't answer the question on is there any field trip place that makes you giggle?
Hmm.
Or an idea you had for a field trip place that you'd like to replace one with?
Not really. One time I took a bunch of teachers to the Shed Aquarium, and we got like behind the scenes, and there was this little sea otter. Oh my gosh, it was the cutest thing in the world. And that was so fun because we got to see this little baby sea otter, and he was so excited. And I've often thought like, oh man, if I could take my students back, like I would love that. Like just I would love that. And I think my students would love that. Um,
Okay, so you like the
not
behind the
really.
scenes animal stuff.
Yeah.
So where around your house could you go to do behind the scenes animal stuff?
I live in the suburbs, and there's not a ton of behind the scenes animal stuff, but I'm sure there maybe is that I don't know about. Huh?
Which bird?
I live in Mount Prospect. It's near Arlington Heights.
Yeah. I know exactly where you're at. So, but so Mount Prospect is kind of in the middle, so you don't have tons of farmland. But
Mm-mm.
I do know there's like horse farms and stuff in Mount Prospect. People from the city go do their horse lessons up in Mount Prospect.
Mount Prospect, really?
I know, right? Crazy.
Hmm.
I'm trying to think what else is around. So maybe this is about like Google, where are things near you where you can spend time with animals where you're behind the scenes? Or it could be go to the Shed Aquarium and see for volunteer opportunities that once a month on a Saturday, you're going there to do something like that. So it's about like starting to do some of these things that open up these areas. But see, your soul's kind of given you an insight to some of these things already. Like you instantly brought up that sea otter example. Now, I would not be playing with sea otters or animals. That's not my cup of tea, but it made you giggle, right? So that's like an example of the giggle, right? And then how you turn that into a job. Well, this is where, as you start to do that stuff, some of those things may open up. It may be that, oh, you're now going to, you could wind up creating your job that you currently have to be more of that until the time is right to leave that job. Or it could be the fact that maybe you're supposed to start the first animal thing in Mount Prospect. It could be like I don't know, a petting zoo or you're closer to like Brookfield Zoo. Maybe there's things there behind the scenes. That's not too far from you. It's closer than the Shed.
Yeah.
Right. Or you could go out towards the Barrington area and there's farmland over there. I had one client that he was from Central Illinois, and for years he was getting ready and he wasn't ready to retire. And then he finally retired. He got sick, just like everyone I know, and he got cancer. And I was like, and he knew this story. I said, you know what the best chemotherapy for you is? You need to go down the block. He lived in Libertyville. I said, and you need to go buy overalls and go work the organic farm that you have told me about for a decade. And just go donate your time. Do you know what that led to? He then purchased his family home in Central Illinois from siblings in the farm. He now runs an organic farm, and he now moved down there, and he's built this huge community, was on the civic board and everything. Like, he's making a huge impact now in where he grew up, restoring his family home. And you would have never guessed that it all had to do with the fact that when he was going through his transition, that he was working at this organic farm. And it was part of it was about waking up a part of himself that he had forgotten about. And the doctors can't figure out how he's gotten, but there was a 97% chance he was going to be dead within a year.
Oh my gosh.
It's like 6-7 years later. And the man's thriving.
Wow. So
again, I see these things over and over and over again. So this is about, it's the behind the scenes, it still has a teaching element to it. You love the times that you spend with your son and your nephews. So it probably has to do with kids in that age range, right? And you're like, and the other thing I would say is every single day say, okay, show me the next right step for me to step more in alignment with myself. Like you wake up before you put your feet on the ground, you say, okay, today, give me some signs, show me, because I'm watching and I'm looking.
Okay.
Because what that does is it opens you up to possibility. It opens you up to potential. It opens you up to yourself. And then the
that's very cool.
craziest shit will happen. And you'll be like, you won't even know. You'll be like, how did that open up? I'm not real sure. But then it does. And you're like, and then you just have to step into it when it does. Because you don't need to call in a health crisis for you to shift this. You're getting the signs right now. There's a reason you're drawn to my work. There's a reason because you're like, okay, I want to feel something like that. I want to be something like that. And yes, you may have to have the tough conversations with your husband or your son. And because again, you don't know where it's going to lead you to, but you just know that something's got to shift.
Yes.
And keep asking, okay, what is the next right step? And then it's going to hit you right in the head, but it's about you being open to it. And then it's going to happen and it'll come like a flyby. And you just got to make sure you grab it and then apply practical action to it.
Okay.
Right? So some of these things that I've asked you about, like your son and be on your own and the animal farm behind the scenes, like those are all things that kind of gave you little inklings that made you giggle.
Yes.
But it's like, we're so used to not following that we don't even recognize that it is something that I'm supposed to now apply to my life.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah,
like we don't even
totally.
recognize it because we forgot how to be on the next adventure. We've forgotten how to be a kid and be in the present moment. Like kids don't plan all this stuff out. They jump into the next adventure like that.
Yeah.
Why do we as adults stop doing that? Because that's what actual living is. Because we want to be smart. We want to be responsible. We want to like make sure everything doesn't fall apart. Well, guess what? Everything can fall apart tomorrow, no matter how well you have it planned. And trust me, I'm a financial planner. I understand. Right? So does that help?
Yes, it does.
There's one other component that I want to coach you on here too. When something makes you contract, I need you to not do it or don't participate in it. If something causes your energy to go boom, cause you to feel deflated or give you anxiety, I need you to pay attention going, that just felt like a ton. Did you ever talk to somebody and you're just like, I can't wait to get out of this conversation.
Yes.
Right? That's the energy I'm talking about. When something makes you feel like contracted or anxiety, or it's like, just walk away. No matter what. Because when you stay there and you keep participating in this, whether it's a conversation or an environment or something, what you're telling the universe is say, hey, give me more of this. Right? You don't want more of that because it makes you go, it makes you feel deflated.
Yeah.
So don't do it. Make sense?
Yeah.
Because the more you close those doors, the more you're going to recognize the giggles and you're going to feel more like that. Because you will be tested. Every single person watching this video is going to be tested. When you start to choose your giggle, you are going to be tested to go back to the pile of poop or go to where you're going to expand into. So when you're tested, you kind of go,
okay, who decided to join us? Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. See?
My cat decided to go.
Confirmation that animals are it, sister. And we start to see some of these signs along the way. It just keeps opening up. So there's somehow you can
I love that.
Your teaching experience with the animals, with the kids, and be on your own. And it might be that you wind up like working at somewhere and they want somebody to run camps or something like that. And it could be that next summer is the first time you do something that's on your own through some kind of farm or something, but it opens something up that creates then more of that reality in your life. Right?
Okay.
It's just about being
it sounds
open
awesome.
to the possibilities.
Okay.
So does that feel like you have a little bit more idea of how to find your giggle?
Yeah. Totally.
Now it's like going to lab class. Now it's like, okay, so now life's going to happen. Now, how do I do this? How do I walk away from the contractions and step into the expansion? Right. And that's just
I love
choosing your
that.
giggle. And anything that feels heavy, don't do it. Right. Anything that feels heavy, don't do it. Well,
Okay.
thank you.
I love that.
Thank you for going live, because as we go through more life examples, I think it gives people the courage to then reflect and look at things inside themselves. And so I appreciate that you had the courage. So if anybody else wants to email me, have a question, you want to go live with me, I'm happy to help people. And Shannon, as you do this in a couple months, by all means, email me and go, Jewel, you're never going to believe what opened up. And then let's get on and let's tell people about it so that they can see that it does actually align. Right? Because I think that's
definitely.
so important, because otherwise, how would we get to the next right step?
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely on for that.
Wow. Any questions for me before we sign off?
No, but I feel like if I start this, I might have some questions. So
that's how it goes. And then we'll just get back on and we'll be like, hey, like, okay, so people can follow it, right? There's a reason people like reality TV. It's because there's parts of them that see themselves in that, right? And we all can learn and grow from it, right?
Yeah, totally.
Well, and I just want to remind anyone that's watching this, you can go to juliemurphy.com, get on my newsletter list. That's how Shannon found it. Shannon, how did you find me originally? I'm just curious about that.
You know what? I actually went to a workshop of yours probably 12 years ago at the Infinity Foundation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And then you emerged years later. I don't know. I somehow found you again, and I've been following you for like the last 2 years or so.
That is how the synchronicity of life works, right? And this is where, and you just kept following it, right? Well, thank you. I appreciate it. See, we're all souls doing our work, and we're supposed to impact other people, and we just keep taking that next right step forward. Good stuff.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Shannon. Love you.